Okay, well, I appreciate your patience. I just thought that was such an amazing event, and it certainly deserved and warranted a 10-minute dedication just to recap the highlights. Every one of those videos in full length, all the speakers are available on our YouTube channel, as well as on our website, all linked there. So if you want to watch Mia McLeod's speech in full, I encourage you to do so. You want to hear Senator Nicholson speak in full, I encourage you to listen. There's plenty of me you can listen to on that channel as well if you don't get enough of me today. So please come out to our website. And I can't thank enough the amazing group of volunteers that literally worked for months to organize and put that together. You can see all the speakers, all the events, all the activities, all the prizes that went into it. Many of those volunteers are here today. Thank you so much. It was headed up by Ahmad Hart, who's not able to make it here today. But thank you, guys. And the best way to thank those volunteers is for those of you who did not participate in that round to come on out and volunteer for the next event. We have more dinners, more fundraisers, and if you want to get involved and be the head of one, we'll be there to support you. It's a great team to work with. You cannot ask for a better group of volunteers throughout the state. The more cooks we have in the kitchen, the tastier the meal is, I say. So that was a big weekend, but the week didn't end there. This was one of the best weeks we've had in the Greenwood County Democratic Party. We were visited by two candidates for governor in a 7-day period. So we saw Mia McLeod at the fish fry. The following Saturday, Joe Cunningham, who is also looking to take on Henry McMaster in 2022, stopped by Montague's to watch some college ball and to eat some food and have some words, and a bunch of us showed out for that as well. I'm going to take just 3 minutes, and you get to hear a little bit of what Joe said.
I was proud to serve as the congressman for South Carolina's 1st District for the last 2 years. And I was proud to be ranked one of the most bipartisan and one of the most effective members of Congress. In my 2 years there in Congress, I got 2 bills that made it through a divided Congress and got signed into law by President Trump. One bill to help out our veterans, another one to help protect our environment. 2 bills in less than 2 years. That is incredibly effective for a freshman lawmaker.
So it was really neat to see Joe. I took some photos of him while he was speaking, sent them to my stepdaughter, said, look, here's Joe, and she texted back, he's cute. So he's definitely locked up the young teen, young 20s female population. But I was also very much blown away by Senator Mia McLeod. She is a dynamic speaker. Full videos of both of these gubernatorial candidates are available on our website and on our YouTube page. The primary is going to be in June of next year. So we're going to have to choose between these candidates for governor who's going to go on to run in November against Governor Henry McMaster. You need to start investing time now to learn about their platforms. We are absolutely blessed with some of the strongest candidates that I've seen since my short time in South Carolina. But Joe and Mia, they're just dynamic and smart, and they say all the right things. There's not a single platform of theirs that I can go against. So we're just lucky to have them both take some time and learn about them. We have a long campaign ahead of us, and I'm glad they both realized that Greenwood is a stop on the way to success, just like it was for President Barack Obama, just like it was for Vice President Kamala Harris, just like it was for President Joe Biden. They all made stops here in little old Greenwood, South Carolina. So thank you for that. What else happened last month? Well, it was a busy month. We had a couple of voter registration drives. 2 of them were uptown in Greenwood as part of the Black Market Commerce event. I want to thank those that came out and supported us, especially Miss Gwen Wiggleton. Gwen sat with me the first time we went out there. It was a beautiful day. She sat with me to keep me company and hand out some materials to the shoppers that were walking by. And then a sudden thunderstorm came through, as it's wont to do here in South Carolina, you may have noticed, and started blowing all the tents away. So a wind gust came, literally lifted our tent off the ground. Gwen shot out with one hand, pulled the tent down. She literally kept the roof over our heads and held the fort. She held the fort. So thank you, Miss Gwen, for doing that. But it was a very successful day, so we had a repeat 2 weeks later, and it was an even more beautiful day where we spent 6-7 hours out there in Uptown by the fountain, registering voters and selling tickets and getting our info out. Then the week before the fish fry, we actually got into Lander University for the first time in many years as part of a student commerce event in their big community center. So Matthew Miller helped organize that. We got in, set up a table. We even registered half a dozen young folk, first-time voters coming in on the cause for the Democratic Party. You may not be able to see it on the TV screen here, but my stepdaughter is a freshman at Lander, and she stopped on by, took a photo, and put it on Snapchat with a caption of, "Bring your dad to school day." Which I thought was absolutely adorable. So we want to do more of this, more voter registration drives, and I'm absolutely thrilled to announce that Denise Waldrop has accepted our role as our new Director of Voter Engagement. So Denise, who's not able to make it today, said yes when invited, and she's going to take on the mantle of finding more opportunities to register voters, to help people understand when the deadlines are, the rules about absentee voting and all of that. So Denise, in addition to being a precinct leader, is also going to be in charge of voting, and I couldn't be happier. All right, speaking of precinct leaders, we did hold our first precinct leaders meeting in August. First time we've done this in many years. Only about 7 precincts were represented. Just a show of hands, who here has stepped up to be a precinct leader? I think there's a few. I see 1, I see 2, I see 3. So thank you for taking that time and stepping up to be the voice in your voting precinct. We have 50 precincts, and if we're ever going to expect change in this county, we need a precinct team in every one of these voting precincts to help get the word out, to help bring the needs of our remote voting precincts to our central executive committee. We need to have that communication protocol. So we're only going to be as effective as the work we're willing to put in to making the change happen. If you want to be part of a precinct team, please sign up at our info table back there. We're going to have our next precinct leaders meeting on October 11th. In our first meeting in August, we took a look at the info packets that I handed out for individual voting precincts. The precincts fell into 2 categories, and I want you to listen carefully to this because this is a data thing, and I'm a data guy. 2 different types of precincts. One type of precinct is high turnout, getting 70-80% of registered voters who voted in the 2020 election, and they're heavily Republican precincts. Then we have the low turnout, 50-55% turnout, but those that did turn out to vote, heavily Democratic. So the precinct leaders got a chance to absorb what type of precinct theirs is. If they're in the high turnout Republican precinct, they have a tough job. Their job is messaging and trying to convert. Those who have the low turnout, they have, I think, a more fun job, which is increased turnout. If those who turned out are voting Democrat, I can only guess what the other 50% are. And if we can get those precincts to get up to the 75-80 percentiles, then people like Jamie Harrison would be sitting in the Senate today. Those votes were out there. Yes, he lost to Lindsey Graham. He didn't lose in a blowout. He didn't lose 10 votes to 1. He lost 6 votes to 4 votes, which means in each precinct, if we could increase that turnout just by 10%, Jamie Harrison sits in the Senate. And if Jamie Harrison sits in the Senate, you know what we have today? We got voting rights enacted through the Senate. We've got the $3.5 trillion Joe Biden agenda passed that's going to change the world and not just our country. We get all these things passed that we want and that we've elected Democrats to do, but can't just seem to get over that veto proof or that, filibuster-proof. Thank you. The filibuster-proof majority. We got to turn out, and it starts here at the precinct level. And if we do it here in Greenwood, and they do it in Abbeville, and they do it in York County, and they do it in all the counties throughout the country, it's out there for the taking. So that's why precinct leadership, there is nothing more vital and important to the strength of our party than being a precinct leader. It doesn't take any experience. It's not a full-time job. It's not even a part-time job. Seriously, it's showing up to a meeting once a month and some breakfast meetings and maybe making a few phone calls. Try to keep it low, but just the bare minimum of effort can make such a difference. Last time we met, back in August, we talked about redistricting, and at the time, it was the U.S. Senate the state Senate redistricting that was coming around town. They had a hearing up in Greenville that some of us attended. We talked about the Senate districts in South Carolina, the gerrymandering, and the finger in Greenwood, if you remember me talking about that. So the Senate controls their Senate districts, and they also control the U.S. congressional districts. In the past couple of weeks, it's now been the State House's turn to talk about redistricting. And they held a hearing here in Greenwood over at Piedmont Tech, where the commissioners from across the state came to hear the voices of those in Greenwood about the House districts. Sadly, only about 13 people showed up. All Democrats, except one, John McCravey was there, but the rest were Democrats. And of those 12, only 4 spoke. And it was a really sad turnout. And it wasn't just Greenwood. It was a similar story across the state. So you have to wonder, why is there such low turnout? Well, we talk about that. Let's take 5 minutes to hear what the 4 speakers did have to say on the subject.
However, since the last census and redistricting, computing hardware and software has grown exponentially. And we ought to have, if we don't have, substantial power in computing to take into consideration a variety of aspects of community of interest. I would dare say with the computing power and artificial intelligence, we ought to be able to input 15 or 20 variables and give them weight and create these districts. There are approximately 30 precincts in House District 14, 7 of which are on this side of Lake Greenwood. And I would maintain that there is little community of interest between those 7 precincts and the remainder of the 23 precincts in House District 14.
Unfortunately, the reality is that decades of precedent and anecdotes has resulted in the perception that what we, the voters, say here today and have been saying for the past few weeks has zero impact on the redistricting process. South Carolina is the only state in this country that has no actual legislation that governs redistricting. But you know this already. This is nothing I'm sharing that's new to you. The Fairness, Accountability, and Integrity Act that has been proposed by your colleagues, Representative Mike Fanning and Gilda Cobb-Hunter, sits waiting to be taken up by the House, which is a great start to establishing transparency and trust in this process. If the South Carolina legislative body could find time somewhere between legislating guns and genitalia to get this law out of committee, or this proposal out of committee, and ultimately into the law books of our great state, you would find a more engaged electorate than the dozen or so bodies that you see here behind me tonight.
I want to address the House districts in Greenwood County, and I would specifically like to talk about the fact that the town of 96 is included with Lawrence County rather than Greenwood County, and I don't think that the people in 96 share utilities or churches or schools or tax laws or any of the criteria that define communities of interest. So I would definitely like to see that looked into. I do to address that. And then the other thing I would like to say tonight is that in all of the meetings that I've been listening to, at least 6 to 12 times in every meeting, somebody stands up and says, we would like an independent election commission to handle redistricting. And I even have heard it said in the opening of some of the meetings, this is not the place to address that. If this isn't the place to address it, I don't know where is.
And as we face redistricting, I have represented this district for a number of years. I hope that we will not have to dramatically change the district. However, over the years it has had some changes, because when I first got the seat, this district included 4 counties: Abbeville, Greenwood, Saluda, and McCormick. And as it stands now, I have the southern part of Greenwood County and all of McCormick County. So I do understand that me having to expand that district, the fact that I have all of McCormick County, my district lies on the Georgia line, so I could not go that direction. So it's going to be, tough.
So I thank those that did come out to at least listen to the process, and for those who spoke, I appreciate their time as well. As you can see, gerrymandering and redistricting happens only once every 10 years. So whatever transpires here in the next few months, we're stuck with it for the next 10 years. So that's how important this process is. And hopefully in the year 2030, boy, does that sound so far away or what? But it's going to be here before we know it. In the year 2030, we are better organized and have laws here in South Carolina that govern that process. How many of you were surprised to hear that South Carolina is the only state that does not have a law in the books about redistricting? They can do whatever the heck they please. There's no law to stop them. Now, there's federal guidelines that are in place that put some parameters around it, but nothing at the state level. We're the only one that way. All right, so I'm wrapping up here on our updates. I think that's it from me, and we'll circle back after our guest speakers to talk about what's happening in the future and what's coming up.